Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Late for rest. This story centers around death. I'm late, she thought, as she ran for the bus. Her friends would say that was her life's motto. Amelia scrambled on the bus, trying not to jostle anyone. She had been given a final warning about not getting to work on time and knew her boss was serious. She was good at her job, but this city had over 2 million people. She could be replaced. In fact, she was one of many autopsy technicians who were employed at her job. She enjoyed working with her colleagues and liked working under her supervisor. The problem was, on top of being a natural procrastinator, she was in school full-time while working full-time. But this was her last semester. Her goal was to become an ME. She had always been interested in true crime as a kid and spent her free time watching the ID channel. Her first interest was in forensic science because she wanted to investigate crime scenes. But death and dead bodies never bothered her. And she started working in the morgue as an undergrad, which spurred her interest in forensic pathology. It was then that she learned she was gifted in reading corpses. All those years of hearing about petechiae, cyanosis, and lividity became useful. She could read bodies like a book. That, combined with her proclivity for stockpiling information about diseases and murder, made her a veritable glossary of forensic pathology. Amelia was well liked at work because she was knowledgeable and friendly. Plus, she had a great work ethic while at work. It was outside of work that she struggled with procrastination. She just struggled to stay focused. If she had an assignment to do that required research, she'd end up going down rabbit holes on a side topic that caught her eye. She would know it's time to stop. But if a deadline wasn't impending, she knew she could get away with pushing something off in favor of exploring her current interest. This habit is what created such a wealth of knowledge for her. Unfortunately, it also made her have to do everything last minute or even late. Since becoming an adult and responsible for her own finances, she has never filed her taxes on time. 2 years in a row, she forgot altogether. To compensate, Amelia didn't get much sleep and often slept through her alarms. It was probably her body and brain's way to ensure she got enough sleep. Her boss didn't care how good of a worker she was if she continuously showed up late. She understood that, yet she still struggled to alter her habits. On top of that, she couldn't stay late because of her grad research. She had a thesis to finish and defend. Amelia lived in a state of guilt and shame over not being better at time management, but figured she'd have time to learn how to get better at it later. Today, it was important to not be late. There was still a possibility of making it on time. She missed her first bus, but ran full speed 6 blocks to catch a different one. She had a chance to rest before her stop, and then she'd have to sprint again for the light rail. It was a tight plan, requiring more physical exertion than she was used to, especially outside in Houston in the summer. But it was better to turn up drenched in sweat than late. For once, Amelia made it to work on time, and surprisingly, she wasn't sweating or even tired. Smiling to herself, she walked into the lab, expecting a few comments razzing her for unusual timeliness. However, everyone looked stern. This wasn't unusual in a morgue where many unfortunate events cause bodies to end up here. It was especially hard when it was a child or a victim of a violent assault, or worse, a child who was a victim of a violent assault. Occasionally, a friend or relative of one of her colleagues came through. Everyone was very professional, but an underlying awkwardness was always present. Amelia approached the body they were centered around. She looked down at herself. Shock doesn't begin to describe what she felt. Confusion, of course, was also a dominant reaction. Was this a prank? The level of cruelty involved in doing something like this as a prank was beyond her comprehension. "What the fuck?" she yelled. For once, she was not late. And this is how they treat her. No one turned to look at her or even responded. "How the fuck did you do this?" Doubt started to flood in. She grew up in the foster system. Did she have a sister she didn't know about? Did she have a twin? "Who is this?" she yelled as her frustration and fear grew. Still, no one met her eye or replied. "When did she arrive?" her colleague Nate asked. "Half an hour ago," Mike, her supervisor, replied. For once, she was early. "What the actual fuck, guys? You are going too far," she screamed. She liked these people. How could they be so cruel? Was this supposed to be some kind of lesson for her extreme tardiness? Like an extreme example of what could happen if she continued living her life, always running late. Ironically, I believe she was hit by a bus while she was running for a different one, Mike suggested. "Wow, death by bus," Angela quipped. "This is sick. It's not funny." "Who is this?" she cried. Mike stepped back right into her. Literally into her. It was slowly dawning on Amelia that this wasn't a prank. She looked down at the corpse that was obviously hers. She was dead, She was hit by a bus. It was unfathomable, but she still had a lot to do. I don't think there is a need for an autopsy, Mike announced. Slowly, everyone turned away, and Amelia took the chance to step closer to her body. "Wait!" she exclaimed. No one listened. Amelia remembered her last moments. She had gotten in an argument with a man near the bus stop. His attempt at catcalling was graphic and disturbing, and she told him, "Shut the fuck up, creep." He retorted with a comment suggesting she needed to be raped. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Amelia demanded. "You're an uptight bitch who needs a good dicking down, whether you want one or not," he replied. "I don't have time for this," she mumbled to herself while looking around for help. She saw a cop car across the street and started to head that way. She had to pause because a bus was rapidly approaching her stop. The last thing she remembers is being pushed. "This was not an accident," she yelled at her colleagues. Desperation set in as she realized this would be recorded as an accident instead of the murder it was. Legally, it was probably manslaughter, but when you're the one killed, you feel murdered, not manslaughtered. Her colleagues continued to go about their business as Mike filled out the paperwork. "Please, look again, Mike," she said as she peered over his shoulder. She watched him type the details, or her death, which she found the most surreal event of the day. "Please," she whispered again, before going to look at her body for evidence that she had been pushed. She needed someone to turn herself over. She even reached out herself. But in her non-corporeal state, there was nothing she could do. She cried tearlessly as she lost hope. "I feel we should do something more for Amelia," Angela said. "Like plan her funeral?" Mike suggested. She had no family. "I was thinking more along the lines of an autopsy," she offered. "Amelia would have wanted one." It's true. Even if she hadn't suspected an attack, she still would want an autopsy. She had already planned for her body to be donated to the body farm when she died. She had lived a life of science and wanted to continue in death. "You're right," Mike said. Before getting up, he changed the paperwork to justify an autopsy. Amelia waited as patiently as she could until it happened. Her body was finally rolled over, and there were marks indicating that she wasn't just pushed, but punched in the back with 2 fists. "Holy shit," Angela remarked. Stunned, the whole team began discussing possibilities as Amelia felt herself being pulled away. "No, I don't want to go," she cried. This would be the final rabbit hole she'd ever go down, and the most important one to her. She fought against this invisible force, tugging her away, because her interest was piqued. She had to know that they solved this crime. The cops needed to know to look at security cameras so they could find this guy. She physically felt like she was in a game of tug of war, with her soul being the middle of the rope. Finally, one last tug pulled her away. There's at least one place she could not be late for. A living mirage. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. Maybe a little too familiar. His movements are sluggish, as usual. His joints crack with every step, and Sally fears he might die on the spot. Although she is certain nobody would miss good old Donovan Peters if he were to suddenly disappear. They slowly creep into the familiar room, announcing their arrival with every creak of rotten wooden floor. Sally's mind wistfully returns to her life before this. Was there even one? Her memory falters. Why can't I remember? Her eyes scan the room frantically, sweeping over the unmade bed, splintered floor, and boarded-up window. Her home. Her cell. Her hands strain against the rope, shaking from the terror of having returned to this fearful place. NPA. Her protest is muffled, much like her snort from earlier. No, no. This will not do. His voice is croaky and barely clear. If she had not known his actual age, she might have thought him to be on the verge of expiration. His chest presses against the back of her head as he forces her inside. His shove is aggressive, and when she falls to the floor, his laughter ricochets off the walls. She barely manages to get to her knees when the door is slammed, locked and barred. Donovan's sinister laughter continues to echo as the sound of his footsteps retreats. Sally shakes her head, forcing tears back into her eyes. She won't. No, she refuses to lose any more of them for that monster. I told you, it won't work. A doe-eyed beauty emerges from the darkest corner of the room. Sally's temper flares, and she springs to her feet, charging at the beauty. It was you, wasn't it? Her voice is cold enough to slice through any warmth in the room, and the beauty lowers her eyes. Sally tugs on the rope around her wrists until it unties, and then uses it to press down onto the other girl's neck. Layla Angelou can rot for all I care. The voice in her head is loud, and she hisses. The girl claws at the rope around her throat and falls back against the wall. Splinters pierce her skin, but she refuses to make a sound. It's always you. Why? Sally's eyebrows are pulled together furiously, and her sharp blue eyes have turned into ice. Don't lie to me. Sally's outburst receives no reply, and her arms finally slump enough for the girl to breathe. but she does not remove the rope. A sob racks through her chest. I thought that this time, at least this once, you'd let me go. Go where? The girl rasps, rubbing her throat. Her luscious black hair cascades down her back and shoulders, perfectly framing her figure. Her green eyes hold a certain complicated depth, and her plump pink lips are pulled into a miserable pout. Sally pulls away completely. Somewhere, nowhere, anywhere but here. She turns her back on the girl and throws the rope aside, massaging her bruised wrists. We can make this work, Sally. I promise. If you just try, you'll see. Please, why can't you just stay with me? Sally ignores her. This is a conversation they've had before. A fruitless one. Once she's soothed the sting on her wrists, she turns around to face the girl again. Her eyes trail down to her throat, and her stomach churns at the fresh burn marks. She knew her throat was already sensitive. She can admit when she was out of line. I'm sorry, Layla. Her head nods in the direction of the girl's neck, but the girl waves it away quickly. Not a problem at all. Happens to us all. They remain in silence for a good 5 minutes before Layla walks towards the bed and starts to fix the bedding. She hums a soft tune as she works, sounding rather cheerful. Sally hates it. How can she be so content? In a situation such as this, I kept some dinner for you. Layla pulls a corroded metal bowl from below the bed and nudges it towards Sally, who reluctantly nears to accept it. The half-eaten apple in the bowl is bruised and looks less than appetizing, but she sends Layla a grateful smile and devours it. I'll try again someday. You know that, right? Something scratches at the window, scaring the two. Layla nearly trips over her own feet as she rushes to hide behind Sally's figure. Not that Sally has any height advantage over her. Sally pats Layla's hand on her shoulder, comfortingly, before removing it and placing the bowl on the ground. She clamps the apple core in her hand and crouches closer to the window. Something about this feels too familiar, and Sally falters in her steps. Something about the entire night feels way too familiar. Yes, she's been in this predicament for quite some time. But the déjà vu she's experienced tonight has been one too many for her to just ignore it. The boards used to cover the window start to blur, pixelate. Sally glances over her shoulder at Layla to confirm if she's just imagining things. But the sheer confusion on Layla's face says it all. Everything is real. Sally stops in front of the window and gasps when she sees the image within the pixelated particles. A scene, much like the one she's just experienced with Donovan, is mirrored in front of her. A mirage? That's not possible. She reaches forward, holding her breath, as her fingertips breach the surface of the image before her. Sally turns around to face Layla, but her breathing stops completely when Layla's figure has disappeared. Her eyes scan the room frantically, but all evidence of Layla having been there has disappeared. Layla! She tries to call, but her voice gets stuck in her throat. Sally turns towards the mirage again and falls backwards when her eyes connect with those of Layla. Only this time, Layla's eyes are a forest green, with a small red fire burning inside her pupils. Pain creeps through her body as her back makes contact with the floor. Layla opens her mouth, and what comes out is a cruel cackle. Inside the mirage, Sally can see another version of herself being shoved into the room and then having a fight with Layla. But the difference is that there are two versions of Layla. The one is pressed against the wall by the other Sally, and the other one is standing to the side and laughing hysterically, like she is watching a form of comedy. Oh, Sally dear. The cackling Layla turns to face Sally through the mirage, and the pixelated particles of the window starts to shimmer. Sally crawls backwards when Layla's hand pierces the surface, and pale, bony fingers clamp around the frame of the window. I remember this. Her voice is muffled by uncertainty, but she manages to push herself up from the floor. I remember all of this. She says this to herself as confirmation. Her eyes dart around the room, and then back at where Layla is still dragging herself through the pixels. She never understood her unsanctioned hate towards Layla. But suddenly, it all makes sense. Every memory stabs at her mind, and for once, she understands what is happening. She's always hated Layla because she knew exactly what she was. That's why Layla does this. Sally runs towards the bed and collects the rope from the ground in the process. I will escape! She ties the rope around one of the springs at the bottom of the bed and bites into her hand, hard enough to draw blood. Tears spill from her eyes as she smears her blood all over the rope, and then uses her index finger to write 3 simple words on the bottom of the mattress. You must escape. She stares at the words, her stomach churning from another feeling of déjà vu. I've done this before? She grits her teeth painfully before reaching up to add something else. You must escape, Layla. Sally crawls out from under the bed and eyes Layla's half-emerged figure fearfully. Without a second longer to lose, she runs to the door and starts banging frantically. With every second she's banging, Layla crawls further out of the pixelated window, laughing comically at Sally's terror. What's all the ruckus about? Donovan barges into the room, but Sally ducks underneath his arms and runs with her every fiber to reach the front door. The stairs complain under her weight as she trips down them, but she doesn't stop. Oh, Sally, Layla's voice sing-songs from behind her, and she shudders. Sally bumps against torn furniture and leaps over newspapers strewn all over the floor, but her eyes stay focused on the black, bolted front door. Her hands shake as she jiggles the locks around, but they refuse to budge. "Come on, Sally. I just want to play." "That's right. We just want to play." Donovan's voice has turned more laryngeal, and Sally's skin crawls. "Please, no." She ruffles the old newspapers on the table beside the door, searching for the keys. But her movement stills when she notices an odd peculiarity in all of the newspapers. Although they are of different dates and already discolored, they have one thing in common: a picture of her. Although they have been edited and computer-generated to show her at different ages, they are all her. Her head spins, and bile pushes up her throat. Sally backs away from the table until her back bumps against a kitchen counter. A voice inside of her yells at her to run, but her feet stay plastered to the ground. Layla's comical laughter has turned into sinister screams, and Sally can finally hear Donovan's heavy footfalls approaching the staircase. She shakes her head to clear her thoughts and almost releases a sigh of relief when she notices a pair of rusty keys peeking out from below a chipped teacup. Sally grabs the keys and rushes to the door, willing her trembling hands to still and complete the task. One lock clicks open, then another, and finally, the last one. Sally nearly sags to the floor in relief, but manages to keep herself poised enough to pull the door open. She runs out of the door, down the 2 stone steps, and onto the asphalt ground. She manages to run all the way to a broken-down truck when Donovan's voice booms in the form of a roar. She ducks behind the truck and presses her back securely against it. Her chest rises and falls erratically, and she makes sure to slow her breathing as to not make a sound. She lowers herself to the ground and pulls her knees to her chest, begging for a door of any of the surrounding houses to open and for someone to come to her rescue. But no one does. Ever. The silence that follows Donovan's roar is deafening. Layla has also stopped cackling, and not even birds can be heard. This is the first time Sally scans the houses around them, only to notice the degraded state every one of the houses are in. They are old and decrepit. There is no possibility that anyone can live in these houses. Her heart stutters, and her entire body goes cold. She turns her gaze towards the side mirror of the truck and finds a terrified version of herself staring back. Her eyes widen at the words scrawled onto the mirror in old, dried blood. Not safe. Follow arrows. Her lips part, but no oxygen enters. She manages to push herself to her feet, albeit shakily, and glances around the truck. Donovan is standing in the doorway, looking around calmly. Behind him, the low hum of Layla's singing fills the air. Run, little mouse. Run, little mouse. Let's all have some fun. Goosebumps spread across the entirety of Sally's body, and she hisses before pushing against the surface of the truck and taking off in the direction of the first arrow that's drawn beside the writing on the mirror. Layla's laughter fills the air, but Sally ignores her as she pushes her legs and pumps her arms harder. Harder. Her eyes scan the surrounding area as she runs, looking for any sign of an arrow. The arrows lead her all the way to an abandoned parking lot of a large business. Her eyes fleet around frantically, but she sees no more arrows. With Layla's humming from behind as her motivation, she runs into the building and ducks below the entrance gates. But when she stops in front of the doors of the elevator, her entire body freezes. From the surface of the elevator door, albeit blurry due to the deterioration, she can see two glowing orbs smiling back at her. Those orbs are illuminated by a red fire burning from the middle of the black pupils. Poor little mouse. Layla leans over Sally's shoulder and skims her cold fingers across her cheek. It's so easy to lay a trap for a mouse who loves its cheese. She laughs hysterically and leans onto Sally for support. This is not the end. Sally bites back, curling her hands into fists. Layla stares at her through the reflection of the elevator door before laughing comically. You're right, dear. This, she waves her hand around as if showcasing her to an audience, is simply the beginning. And we? She points a finger at Sally and then back at herself. We are going to have a lot more fun together. Sally rips herself away from Layla and spins around. But Layla tuts, snaps her fingers, and then slaps her palm against Sally's forehead in one swift movement. There's no rush, dear. With her words, Sally's world starts to spin, and her eyes flicker before she is consumed by darkness. And the next thing she sees is the familiar, cold, creaking hallway of Donovan's apartment. He forces her down the hall with his chest pressed against the back of her head and his hand clamped securely around the lower half of her face. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. But for the first time, it seems just a little too familiar. Quest in time. Where is Julienne? It is a question that has haunted my mother, father, and myself. It was 3 years ago when my life changed forever. My sister, Julienne, disappeared coming home from Red Oak Park, a county recreation site about 20 miles west of Jonesburg, a small town south of Cleveland, Mississippi. The park had a pond with access to Lake Colbert and the Mississippi River. Lots of trees and hiking trails, campgrounds, and a couple of boat docks. My sister and her boyfriend had gone to the park to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday. The two had gotten into an argument. She had gotten mad, told him to find his own way home, and had gotten in her car and left. First of all, you might be wondering why my sister was driving. That had a lot to do with the argument they had got into. Her boyfriend, Steve Simich, was currently a stocker in a grocery store, did not have a car, at least not one that worked, was trying to finish college, although not very successfully, and didn't seem too worried about whatever was ahead. My sister, on the other hand, Julienne Harden, had finished college, worked a full-time job, and was preparing for a life with a house, a family, and a future. Although there was no doubt she loved him, I believe that, looking back, she was beginning to doubt how much he loved her. His unwillingness or inability to move forward in a responsible manner was a red flag she couldn't ignore. So, that being the case, according to Steve's account, she blew her stack, fussed at him, and jumped in the car, speeding off down the road. She was never seen again. The police were called when she didn't make it home that night. Steve was interviewed, but the fact that he had to call a friend to pick him up at the park, something that was verified by the police, seemed to clear him of any part in my sister's disappearance. We called on friends and family, searched the roads between our house and the park, but found no sign of her or her car. 3 days later, her car was found in a church parking lot. There was no video or security camera, so no evidence of who left it there. No matter how we searched or the police investigated, no evidence of her has been found since. I was 17, a freshman at Hobart University when this happened. She was 22, a graduate from the same college, and just starting her life. Although my questions started then, my quest didn't begin until my senior year, when I was finishing up a degree in criminal justice. My last semester at college, I had a chance to get an internship with the county sheriff's office, and I worked to get located at the same precinct that had investigated my sister's case. I did not mention my sister because I was afraid that they might see my placement there as some kind of conflict of interest. Luckily, it had been long enough since my sister disappeared that the detective assigned to the case, Jonathan Lucker, seemed not to recognize me or remember my name. I kept a low profile, determined not to be found out. I started in late January, with responsibilities to be assigned on a daily basis. My boss was Sergeant Holcroft, a middle-aged black woman who talked with a hard-nosed tone, but showed empathy and caring if you looked deep enough. In between cleaning interview rooms, filing personnel records, and filling out supply forms, I perused the computer, which I now had at least limited access to, and prowled the evidence locker to see what I could find out about my sister. Unfortunately, I could find very little that I didn't already know. She had left the park about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, according to her boyfriend's testimony, and started home. That was the last time she was seen. Being a long stretch of mostly rural highway, they could find no witnesses that saw her on the road, nor could they find anything that showed how the car ended up at the church parking lot. There weren't any fingerprints, DNA, blood, or any other clues in the car. And I was now determined to find out what happened to her. The only thing they found in her car was a plastic fork, not used, lying on the floorboard. Her purse and coat were in the back seat as if they had been moved out of the way. Did that mean someone had joined her in the car? No one knew. I pored through the files on the computer and in the records themselves, looking at every note, form, report from other agencies that had been gathered until I could name, pay, and paragraph where a certain fact could be found. "What are you looking at?" a voice suddenly interrupted me as I pored over papers on the back row desk that I had taken over. I was so concentrating on understanding everything that I could about my sister's case, I didn't notice the approach of Detective Lucker. This might not be good, I thought. Sorry. I sat back in my seat. I thought I would familiarize myself with some processes used to investigate cases, including your sister's case, I see, he said. Detective Lucker was short, slightly bald-headed, with a thin gray mustache, thick fingers, and eyes that looked straight through you. I sat back even more, surprised that he knew who I was. I had been counting on a non-existent anonymity, it seems like. He smiled. Yes, I remember you. I don't forget cases that haven't been solved, nor the people involved in them. I also don't have any problem with you researching the case. However, that may not be true of everyone in the office. There are 2 caveats, he continued. One is that you don't do anything that would jeopardize the case. You don't contact anyone. You don't mess with the evidence. You don't talk to anyone else in the office. If you have questions, you come to me. Secondly, if you come up with any facts, theories, or other information related to your sister's disappearance, you come directly to me immediately. Do you understand? I nodded enthusiastically. From having to sneak around, watching my back, to being given permission to research all I wanted to, discreetly, of course, was more than I could hope for. Yes, sir, I answered quickly. Anything that you have to tell me? He followed up with the to-be-expected question. No, sir. I shook my head. Nothing yet, he pointed at me. If you do find anything, let me know immediately. I will give you some hints," he continued. The boyfriend was investigated thoroughly. He had no motive, and we were able to confirm that he was at the park until he was picked up by a friend about 4:30. We could also not find any other friends or acquaintances who had motive or opportunity. She was traveling home, alone. You will see all this on the report. Her phone stopped sending signals not long after it left the park. Whether she turned it off or the battery died, we don't know. From what Steve told the family after it happened, I interrupted, he tried to call her many times after she left. Knowing my sister, she probably turned her phone off so as to not be bothered by his frantic messaging. The detective nodded. "That sounds reasonable. Again, let me know if you find anything," he said, and walked away. I took that as a command not to be trifled with, but I didn't care. Anything I found out would have been on his desk the next day anyway. So, in that regard, nothing had changed. Except now, I had permission. I didn't have to feel guilty about doing my behind-the-scenes snooping, and better yet, my quest to find out what happened to my sister was on full throttle. I am sure there are cliches that I haven't used yet, but stay tuned. I spent the next several days, in between doing the job that I was actually hired to do, going through the folders that I had found in the evidence files. The police had very little to go on. They didn't know when or where she disappeared, except it was somewhere between the park and the town, 20 miles away. They looked at security cameras along the main road, but although they saw similar makes and models, were not able to positively identify my sister's car. One note said that a similar type of vehicle was shown passing by a gas station, but did not show up in any other images between there and town. Again, did that have anything to do with my sister? Was it someone else who turned off to go home, visit someone, or head down a more rural road where only farms existed with no cameras or security images? I continued my research over the next several weeks, heading toward the time when my internship was fast running out. When the college semester ended, so did my internship. Luckily, the officer I worked for basically let me do my own thing and didn't assign me too many additional responsibilities that would make my research even more difficult. I wondered if Detective Lucker had said something to her, but I was afraid to ask. More and more, I became frustrated because there was so little to go on, and I came to appreciate how difficult the initial investigation had been. I feared that my question would remain unanswered until suddenly my duties as an intern helped me find the clue that I had been looking for. I was cleaning up folders from the conference room to be refiled after a meeting when I happened to look at the heading on one file. Sarah Jane Fuller. Missing person. The tab on the folder. Read. Curious, I closed the conference room door, sat down, and opened it up. There were the usual reports, and a picture of the missing girl. Attractive white girl, with brown hair and a thin, pointed chin. Her eyes seemed to stare at me. I quickly placed it on the table and read the basic details. She had disappeared the year after my sister and was driving from eastern Tennessee through Mississippi, heading to New Orleans. Although there were interstate highways that provided fast and safe passages, for some reason, she was driving along the Mississippi River, taking back roads and rural highways. Her family said that she loved the river and visited it as often as she could, no matter what state she was in. So there was a possibility that she had driven that way for the scenery. Her phone had stopped pinging on Highway 17, just east of Rosewood, a town not far from the river. To me, the interesting part was that my sister Julienne would have taken the same route, at least part of the way. Like my sister, her car was later found in a deserted parking lot. Again, like my sister, there were no security cameras that picked up any footage of her, her car, or anything else. Were there any other missing people in the last 5 or so years? I found another candidate, this one an older man. Timothy Mitchell was last seen at a friend's house on Takeoff Ard in June 2022. Takeoff Road ran south and north of Highway 17. This occurred last year, again in the Thanksgiving or Christmas time frame. Another coincidence? His truck had never been found. I kept looking, but found no other missing persons in that geographic area, at least in the last 5 years. But why that area? It was probably as simple as the perpetrator lived close, but was there more to it? I researched every chance I got. When I wasn't doing my day job, or going to school, or anything else I was legitimately supposed to be doing. The end of my internship was approaching rapidly, and I was fast running out of time. In fact, tomorrow was going to be my last day. I kept looking at the files, searching for anything that might be related. Just as I was fixing to hang it up for the day, the year and perhaps forever, I found the key. I knew now why the location mattered. Would that lead to the person or persons we were looking for? Would that lead me to Julienne? At noon the next day, I was sitting in my car outside of Josephine's Roadhouse, an old-fashioned restaurant located on Highway 17, halfway between the river and Jonesburg, hoping that the person I was waiting for would show up. I gave a big sigh of relief when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot and Detective Lucker stepped out. I had left an invitation on his desk before leaving the night before, since today I would be involved in out-processing, turning in paperwork, filling out forms, etc., and would probably have very little time to see him in person. The invitation was vague, but stressed that it was not a social event and might be very important to an answer that we both wanted. I met him in the parking lot, and we walked into the building. It was as old-fashioned inside as it was outside, with plaid tablecloths, white walls covered with old portraits, plaster statues on tables in each corner, and pictures of customers above each booth. We sat down and started looking at the menu. I was waiting for the detective to ask something, but he kept quiet, obviously content to leave it up to me. After we ordered, I looked at him, hoping that I wasn't going to sound like an idiot or nutcase. "Thank you for meeting me on short notice," I started off with. He nodded, but didn't reply. "I was researching, as you are aware, and I found some interesting coincidences," I said. "What coincidences?" he asked, already looking intrigued. I told him about the missing people besides Julianne, and stressed that this was only based on an initial search, and there might be more. "What makes you think they are related?" he asked. "The location was the first thing that came to mind," I replied. They were all thought to be either on Highway 17 or approaching or leaving the highway. Also, the time of year. All disappearances occurred in the November or December time frame. "I am assuming you found out what was so special about Highway 17, he asked. I nodded. "I believe I did. That is why I asked you to meet me here today," I said, taking a deep breath. Almost a year before my sister went missing, a wreck occurred on Highway 17. In that wreck, Joanne McKenzie, a 54-year-old mother of two, was killed. She supposedly lost control and hit a tree head-on. The car was old, and the airbag failed to deploy. "Supposedly?" the detective asked, as I had expected him to. The son, Timothy McKenzie, who was 21 years old at the time, did not agree with the police report. He kept saying to anyone who would listen that it was no accident, that his mother was murdered, and that the police were negligent. He complained to the news, to the city and county authorities, and even to the state. I found records online of letters he wrote to websites and news outlets all the way up until October of the next year. "October?" the deputy asked, his voice suddenly sounding very curious. I nodded. "The last thing I saw was about a month before my sister's disappearance. Maybe he just gave up and stopped fighting a lost cause. Maybe," I agreed. "Except he also reached out after my sister's disappearance, as well as the other disappearances, by writing letters or posts about how unsafe our state highways were. You think that he is involved in these disappearances in some way?" "I do. These disappearances emphasize how unsafe the roads are, and that there are people out there who could be responsible for his mother's death. By causing these people to disappear, he is getting his vengeance on the entire state." "But wouldn't these actions result in increased police presence, in making it harder for him to commit future crimes?" "Maybe," I answered, "but it hasn't happened yet." The other thing, as I mentioned, was the time frame. These 3 disappearances occurred within a month or so of the date that his mother was killed. And Mackenzie and his family have a farm off Highway 17. We have time, location, motive. The detective thought for a minute. Even if this unlikely story is true, we have no evidence to tie him to any crime. One other thing. I leaned forward. His mother is buried on a private cemetery on the Mackenzie property. Where is a better place to hide bodies than in a cemetery, especially a private one? And, I continued, even a private cemetery has to be licensed by the county and is subject to health and welfare inspections. I leaned back. My case was made. Now it was up to the detective. He thought for a minute. "Okay," was all he said before getting up to go. "I will take care of it. Any reason that we met here?" he asked his last question. "Yes," I said. "The Mackenzie family owns this restaurant." I waited and watched him leave. I had no doubt that he would find a way onto the property, and, unfortunately, I also had no doubt that he would find the missing people, and that my question would finally be answered. Where was Julienne? I was fixing to find out. Birthday, fear, and marriage. "A toast," she exclaimed, holding up her shot, waiting for the others to follow suit. The 2 men held up their drinks, clinking and laughing. "Happy birthday!" she yelled unusually loud. I'm sure the whole bar heard her. The birthday man had the biggest smile, looking happy, appreciative, nostalgic, if nostalgic had a look. He had his head cocked to one side, his whole face lit up, but his eyes were deep and distant. The small bistro table reached up to their chests. Even though the bar was dimly lit, displaying the usual neon beer signs and overhead Pabst Blue Ribbon, bar lights, I could still see her cheery outfit. A green sequins top, black jeans, and sandals. She had on those antenna headbands sporting springy shamrocks. They bounced around on her head as she talked and laughed. She looked cute for the beginning of spring and St. Patrick's Day, and that thought sent an electrifying pang through me. The guys beside her had green t-shirts, a typical guy effort. The rest of the bar was a steady buzz of clinking, laughter, and the occasional loud outburst of people becoming intoxicated. "I'll be right back," said the girl's voice enthusiastically as she hopped down from her seat and headed towards the ladies' room. Her blouse reflected the lighting, and she appeared to glide away, her long, dark hair trailing behind. The guys chopped it up, patting each other on the back and carrying on like teens. Brothers? Or father and son? I couldn't recall, but they looked slightly alike. Then I remembered that the big guy had an older brother, so this one must have been his son. "I got another round," the girl in green declares excitedly. She puts down 3 green beer mugs and returns to retrieve 3 shot glasses. I didn't see her leave the women's restroom and felt annoyed. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss a move. I feel a splash on my wrist, and a tall guy with dark hair and light eyes, who must be 10 years younger than me, is smiling at me. "I'm so sorry," he says. "I didn't mean to bump your table." I lick off the alcohol from my wrist, and he smiles wider. "Can I get you another?" "Sure," I say. "A kamikaze, please." He leaves and returns with drinks for both of us. We engage in small talk, but the conversation takes a twist. It starts to get deep, past relationships and family, and finally, he asks, "Are you single?" "I am," I say. "It's only been 3 months, but I feel so free now." "I know what you mean," he concurs. "I've been single for about a year now." Just then, the DJ blasts the perfect dance song, and we look at each other and get up to dance. It is so much fun, I think. I enjoy the sweaty feeling from dancing as my hair sticks to my face and neck. The pheromones in the air, with the slight alcohol buzz, the way the room swirls in the dimness, and the vibe of happiness and opportunity in the bar. My body feels like it is moving exactly how I want it to. I feel sexy and elated. After a 25-minute set, we make our way back to the table. The girls I came with are in their corners, talking to their catches of the day. I didn't come for any of this, but I was glad it found me. He walks over to the bar to get us another round, and I bite my lip as I see his arms flex and reach into his pocket for his wallet. He's cute, my type, and he can carry a conversation. He's not an idiot, I muse. As he walks back towards me, I avert my eyes, acting like I wasn't watching him. But then I see Shamrock Girl. She is hugging the big guy, and the one I assume is the son comes in for a group hug. They hold on to each other, appearing like a tight-knit unit. She must be the sister, I decide. I've heard that the big guy has a sister. A kiss near my lip. He's back. My flirty side goes in for a small nibble. He smiles directly into my eyes, and I can tell I got him. "That's so sexy," he glows, after unleashing the shy girl act, engaging in intelligent conversation, being interested in all he says, and validating his masculine gestures, classic flirting. I arrive at the next step. Teasing. It's not as calculated as it sounds. It comes naturally to me, and I could teach a class as good at it as I am at it. I stare at him as I sip my drink. There is a commotion at the Shamrock Girls' table. A group of guys and a couple of girls come in, high-fiving and hugging the 3 family members. I hear loud, "Happy birthdays," and there is camaraderie. It's a celebratory moment. I've had enough. I didn't come for this. I stand up, grab my jacket, which feels heavier than usual, and tell my cutie I need to find my friends. He looks disappointed, and I am struggling to keep my composure. My chest starts to feel tight, and my stomach starts to turn. I feel my heart beating faster, and my hands begin to shake. I feel sadness, then resolve, then the anger. I became blind. I walk to the Shamrock Girls' table and stand directly before her. My eyes are hard, and I stare at her. She stops talking, and her face straightens. The big guy, the killer, sucks in his breath. Must be nice, I utter. Must be nice to have a brother to celebrate his birthday with. My voice becomes louder and colder. She doesn't say anything. The surrounding people begin to look towards us. I snatch her hair with exceptional force and yank her face to the table. It is then the rage takes over. I fucking hate you! I scream at her. I hate you, I say to the big guy, attempting to reach for his sister. I pull the small, sharpened, handheld spear I carry and jab it into his hand. He yells and pulls his hand back. It is dawning on her who I am. She thought 25 years ago was long forgotten. The big guy thought it was behind him. He felt he paid his price for killing my brother, his classmate, and his childhood friend. But he didn't. I didn't get to serve my justice. I'm screaming viciously at everyone who is attempting to reach for me. I look like a rat cornered, trying to find a way out. In the corner of my eye, I see my cutie. He doesn't look shocked. He is slightly smiling at me. Let me do this! I scream. I raise my other hand with my spear and see myself driving it into her temple as I hold her down with my other hand by her hair. No, don't, was the only muffled words I heard from her. Screams ensue as I graze her head and stab the table. I plunge over and over on the wooden table beside her head until the adrenaline starts to subside. I realize the music has stopped and the whole bar is watching. The big guy was stunned, but he didn't restrain me. He let me do it, as I asked. He's holding his hand. He mouths, "I'm sorry." As the bar begins to fade into black, I feel someone's arms gently touching my shoulders, and my shoulders start to cave in. I slowly release my grip on her hair and let my hand fall onto my jacket. Her face, smeared with tears and sweat, looks at me as she backs away. It's my cutie's arms. He guides me away, enveloping me with his body for protection. He moves me through the crowd. My hand feels the metal of the gun, the one I bought a couple of years after the big guy killed my brother in an attempt to curb my fear of guns. It remained in its case for over 20 years. I was still afraid of them. The topic came up in my deep conversation with the cutie I met. I told him my plan. He must have thought I was joking, but he was keen when it rolled out like the scenario I painted. As he walked me out of the building, I could hear my friends calling after me. I ignored them and got into my cutie's car. He shut my door and held me. Still feeling numb, we drove to the city. Halfway there, we started opening up again, talking like we had known each other for years. Nothing ever came of that night. Not one thing. There was no police report, and no one ever brought it up. It's almost as if it never happened. I ended up marrying my cutie. He is my soulmate, and I felt complete. A few years later, the feeling came again. I felt the stirring. I began formulating another way to get her. I'd send in my cousin to seduce her, make her fall in love, then break her heart. She needs a broken heart like mine. A tale to tell. Is anyone sitting here? Harriet looked up at the older woman standing at the other end of the bench. No, not that I can see, she responded, thinking to herself, does it look like anyone sitting there? Her day had been hectic, and she desperately wanted to get home. The woman sat down, fussing her fur coat around her, and shifting her ample bosom into place. I hear the train to Fauchester is delayed. How bothersome. Yes, it is. I'm not sure what's happening. Harriet glanced at the woman, and then resumed her gaze on the departure board as destinations and times flicked updates, all except for the Fauchester line, which still said, departing at 14:10. It was now 3:20. I don't know what's happened to our railways. The older woman lifted her chin and adjusted her green cloche hat. It never used to be like this. At least someone would let you know what was going on. I just wish it would hurry up. Harriet glanced at her watch, as if doing so might cause something to happen. It really has disrupted my day. I should have been at a very important appointment in Fauchester. With my accountant, you understand. These things are very important. It doesn't do to keep people waiting like this. Really, it doesn't. Harriet glanced at the woman. She was much older than her, in her mid-60s at least. And to Harriet, the talk of accountants, her fur coat, patent leather clasp handbag, and matching shoes left her feeling rather insignificant. I just need to get home. There's so much I need to do. And I've left Freddie with... She paused. Suddenly, her circumstances seemed so trivial in comparison with the rather affluent-looking women she was sharing the bench with. Freddie? You've left him. What have you left him with? If you don't mind me inquiring, of course. We seem to be stuck here, so we might as well have a chat to while away the time. Well, you see, Freddie, he works for me at the office. Oh, I see. And you've had to leave him in charge, have you? What sort of office, if you don't mind me asking? The insurance brokers. You might know it. Harland and Tapsfield on Fountain Street. That much was true. Harriet worked as a part-time typist for the company, juggling her hours there, with managing the small terraced house, her young son and Freddie, her husband, who worked night shifts at the steel works. Oh yes, I think I do. Just near the provincial bank. Yes, I know the place. That's right. I'm a manager there. Harriet craned her head to look down the platform, hoping a guard or someone might be able to tell her when the train would be coming. But apart from other waiting people and the odd pigeon, there was no one who could cast any light on the situation. I really wish they'd let us know what's going on, she sighed. Insurance. I never could stand our insurance man. Silly little man with a pork pie hat and a mustache that always had bits of his lunch stuck in it. My husband dealt with all that, of course, Wilfred. Bless his soul. You do seem very young to be in charge at an insurance broker's. Oh, well, I might only be 25, but I'm very good at what I do. I certainly wouldn't have my people going around with lunch stuck in their mustaches. Harriet gave a small smile. I'm Harriet, by the way. Harriet West. Well, I'm pleased to meet you, Harriet West. I'm Dora Barton. You might have heard of me, or perhaps not. You may be of use to me someday if I'm needing to set up any insurance. Not that I should need to mind. My accountant sorts out that kind of thing for me. That must be nice, having someone to look after your affairs like that. It can be quite tiring, my dear, making sure they're doing the right thing. But I expect you know what that's like. Running an insurance, brokers must be dreadfully hard work, especially for a woman. And so young, too. Dora Barton looked Harriet up and down with a steely eye, taking in her slightly scuffed court shoes and raincoat that had seen better days. Her gaze left Harriet feeling rather uncomfortable, and she shuffled in her seat, reaching into her handbag. Actually, I really must make a phone call. Make sure that Freddie, at the office, I just need to speak to him. There's a telephone booth just at the end of the platform. I'll just go and see if I can reach him. Yes, of course, dear. I can see you must be quite anxious. I'll make sure no one takes your seat while you're gone. And Dora spread herself a little more across the seat and placed her handbag at her side. Harriet strode quickly down the platform and into the small telephone booth where she dialed the number for home. Come on, Freddie, pick up. I've only got a couple of coins, she muttered. A clunk was heard at the end of the line, and Harriet quickly pushed her coins into the well-worn slot. Freddie, is that you? Well, of course it is. Who'd you think it would be? Harry? What's up? Shouldn't you be back home by now? You know I like a couple of pints before my shift starts. Yes, it's me. The train is delayed. I don't know when it's going to arrive. Could you look after Michael until I get back? Well, I don't know, love. I thought you'd be back by now. Those trousers of mine still need mending, you know. Oh, well, Mrs. Bentley next door will have him. I'm sure, if you really have to go. I'll sort out your trousers when I get back. You know I will. You should be back by now, Harry. This isn't like you. I know. It's the train. Oh, Freddie, please just beep, beep, beep. The pips went at the end of the line, and Harriet placed the receiver back in its cradle with a heavy thunk. Hoping desperately that Mrs. Bentley would be home, she trailed back to the bench where she could see Dora Barton talking to a man in a guard's uniform. So I said back then that the service wasn't acceptable, but it doesn't seem they've taken any notice. I'm sorry, madam. Like I said, there's a fallen tree across the line, and it's taking the fellas a while to shift it. A big one it is. Great big oak tree. Must have been the storms we had last week that weakened it or something. Came all the way down the banking, it did. The guard paused and looked at Harriet. Hello, miss. I was just telling your companion here about the tree that's blocking the Fauchester line. A tree? Oh no. How long is it going to take to clear? They don't know, interrupted Dora. They don't seem to be able to get their act together. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep my appointment now. It's going to be far too late. I'll let you ladies know if I hear anything else. The guard gave a brief smile and headed towards a group of frustrated-looking people further down the platform. Did you get everything sorted out at the office? Asked Dora, budging back down the bench as Harriet sat down. The office? Oh, yes, that. Yes, Freddie is fine. He's got everything in hand. At least I hope he has. Harriet's voice trailed off. Oh, you don't sound too sure. Freddie's okay. Really, he is. I can trust him. Just sometimes I need to check he's got everything under control. The two women sat quietly for a moment. The departure board continued to flick and update the details of all the trains except for theirs. Then the bing-bong-bing of the tannoy. The 1410 Fauchester train is delayed. We know that, muttered Dora. And work is currently taking place to remove the obstructing tree from the line. We now expect the next train departing from this station to Fauchester to be at 17:30 hours. That's another hour and a half, wailed Harriet as she looked at her watch. It's really not good enough, tutted Dora. Honestly, what a way to spend a Tuesday afternoon. You know, in some respects, I think Tuesdays are far worse than Mondays. You know where you are with a Monday. You've got the whole week ahead of you, and you just get on with it. But Tuesday, it's as though you've managed to get Monday out of the way. But Friday still seems such a long way away. I suppose you won't make your accountant's appointment now? Harriet looked at the older woman, who was taking a lipstick from her bag and reapplying the red hue to her mouth. You're right. There's no sense in me waiting for a train now. How about I buy you a cup of tea in the cafe over there, as a thank you for keeping me company, and then I'll be on my way. Well, if you're sure, that would be nice. Better than sitting here for another hour. It's getting a bit chilly too, don't you think? The two ladies made their way across the station concourse to a small, bustling cafe, full with other people waiting for the delayed train. "There's a table in the corner there," said Harriet. "I'll grab it if you can get the tea." "Yes, that's fine, dear. I'll do that." Harriet settled herself at the corner table, noting the various people who were filling the small cafe. Businessmen, people with shopping bags, women with small children, fractious at the delay. She thought of Michael and prayed that Freddie would find Mrs. Bentley at home. Her eyes shifted to the counter, where she could see Dora Barton fumbling in her bag. "Well, I'm quite sure it was here," she was saying to the surly-looking woman behind the counter. Dora looked over at Harriet and raised her shoulders in confusion. Not wanting to make a scene, Harriet shuffled her way between the busy tables towards Dora. "This lady here's got no money to pay for the tea," said the woman behind the counter, not seeming to care who could hear. And a few heads turned to see what the commotion was all about. "I do have money, I do," protested Dora. "But it's not here," she continued, looking in her bag, which, from where Harriet stood, appeared to contain only handkerchiefs and lipsticks. "Maybe you do," said the woman behind the counter, "but these teas won't pay for themselves." She looked at Harriet. "Have you got any money to pay with?" "Well, I think so." Harriet knew she only had a £1 note in her purse that she needed for the week's groceries. Dora and the woman behind the counter both looked at her, and with a small sigh, Harriet took the note from her purse and handed it to the woman. "That'll be 1.04 shillings," said the woman, as she took change from the till and handed it to Harriet. "Enjoy your tea." Back at the table, Dora lowered her voice. "My purse must have been stolen. I had it earlier. I'm so very embarrassed. Goodness knows what that woman must have thought." "I'm sure it will turn up," said Harriet, anxiously glancing out of the window to see if anything was happening that might indicate a train would be here soon. "Perhaps you left it at home." "Home? Well, perhaps I did that. But I must thank you for paying, though I'm sure, with your job, you won't mind spending a few pennies on a cup of tea. It's so terribly humiliating to be found with no money. What must you think of me?" Dora paused for a moment, and then her demeanor changed, the earlier air of confidence almost evaporating before Harriet's eyes. "You see, they said it would always be okay. But when Wilfred died, Wilfred was my husband. Understand? Well, what can I say? He left me in rather a pickle, I'm afraid." "Oh, I'm sorry." Harriet sensed the change in the woman and softened her tone. "What happened to your husband?" "I really don't remember. It was so long ago. I was playing Titania in A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Palace Theatre at the time. Everything is such a blur. I'm sure I remember the funeral. The lovely man who played Puck was there. He said something. I can just remember. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. Yes, that's right. All is mended Dora, are you okay? Harriet reached across the table and tentatively touched the older lady's arm. Immediately, Dora pulled her arm back in haste, as though something had bitten her. "Don't touch me. No, don't do that." Harriet retracted her hand quickly, reaching for her teacup to steady herself. She looked at Dora over its rim. "I hope you'll be all right, Dora, but I think I'll go and see what's happening with the train just now." "Yes, you do that. They might have the Pullman carriage ready for me now. See if you can hurry them along, dear." Dora opened her handbag and feverishly reapplied her lipstick again. "But I thought—" Harriet was distracted by a scene playing out on the concourse outside the cafe. A woman in a long brown mackintosh and a man in a white coat were standing talking to the guard. The woman was gesturing with her arms, pointing down the platform and then back towards the street. The man in the white coat stood quietly, and the guard looked up and down, scratching his head underneath his cap. His eyes traced across the station, and then did a double take and stopped at the cafe. He looked at Harriet, who was just getting out of her seat, and pointed in her direction. The woman ran across the station, the man in the white coat following her as she burst into the cafe. "Mother!" she called across the small table-filled room. The voices in the cafe fell to a hush, and everyone looked at the woman, and then in Harriet and Dora's direction. "Don't let them take me." Dora grabbed Harriet's arm. "Please." The woman pushed her way between the tables, and now stood trembling as she looked down at Dora, who had her hands over her head and was trying to push herself as far as possible into the corner. "Mother, please, we've been worried sick. Where have you been? Leave me alone. This lady here is looking after me. See, she bought me tea, and she runs an insurance broker's, so she is quite capable. I don't need you, or your doctor friend over there." The woman in the brown mackintosh looked at Harriet, eyebrows raised and questions etched across her face. "The train was delayed, and your mother sat next to me. She's missed her appointment with the accountant in Fauchester, I'm afraid," Harriet said, attempting to explain the situation. "Accountant? Fauchester? Oh, what has she been saying?" The woman looked in despair at the man in the white coat, who was now standing behind her. "I think I should go." Harriet picked up her handbag. "I really need to make sure I get on the train. Freddie is going to go crazy, and poor Michael will wonder where I am." "You tell Freddie to do as you say," piped up Dora from the corner. "You're the boss. Don't have him telling you what to do." "I think we should get Mrs. Barton back to my surgery," said the man in the white coat calmly. "We can get her settled down there. Come on now, Mother." The woman touched Dora's shoulder. Dora shirked away. "Let's get you back to talk to nice Mr. Davidson here, and no running off this time." She looked at Harriet. "Would you believe it? We only left her for less than a minute. We've been looking for her for the last 2 hours. Well, I'm glad you found her." Harriet moved to the other side of the woman. "Goodbye, Dora. It was nice to meet you." Dora looked up from the corner, dabbing her handkerchief at her mouth. "You tell that Freddie of yours," she said. "You tell him to mend his own trousers and to look after that little boy of yours properly." Harriet stared for a moment, unsure if she'd heard correctly, then hastened her goodbye and made her way towards the platform where the delayed 1410 to Fawchester was pulling into the station. Later that evening, Harriet tucked Michael into his cot and placed a gentle good-night kiss on his forehead. She stood at the bedroom door and smiled, watching for a moment as her son fell into a blissful slumber. Downstairs, she took Freddie's torn trousers that he'd left strewn across the sofa and put them in a bag of scrap fabric that she kept in the cupboard under the stairs. She then made herself a cup of tea and settled down to read her favorite magazine. As Harriet West turned the pages of her magazine 20 miles away, behind a locked bedroom door, Dora Barton lay in her small single bed, staring up at the ceiling and beyond, and Dora Barton smiled. Burn the house. Down. Did you hear what happened to the old house on Birch Street? No? What? It burned down. Burned down? How? Nobody knows for sure. People are saying it was arson. Arson? That place was empty for years. Who would bother? That's what everyone's asking. But there were lights on the night before. Lights? You're serious? As a heart attack. I saw it myself. You were there? Well, I was passing by, took a shortcut through the park, and you didn't think to tell anyone. I didn't think it mattered. Thought maybe the city finally sent someone to clear it out. The city? They don't even fix the street lights. Why would they bother with that house? You're probably right. But who else would be in there? Kids, maybe? You know, messing around. That's what I thought at first. But what? I saw someone. Someone? Yes, a man. Or at least, I think it was a man. You think? What does that mean? It was dark, okay? I couldn't see clearly. But there was someone moving around inside. Did they see you? No. At least, I don't think so. I kept my distance. What were they doing? It looked like they were carrying something. A bag, maybe. A bag? Like a duffel bag? Could have been. Hard to tell from where I was. And then they disappeared. Into the back of the house. That's weird. You didn't hear anything? No. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Did you notice anything else? There was a smell. A smell? Like gasoline. Gasoline? Are you kidding me? No, I swear. I didn't think much of it at the time. How could you not? Gasoline in an old house? That's a red flag. I know that now, okay? But at the time, I just thought it was, I don't know, maybe they were fixing something. Fixing something? In that house? I wasn't thinking clearly. So what did you do after that? I kept walking. You just left? Yeah, and you didn't tell anyone? Who was I supposed to tell? The cops? They wouldn't believe me. Maybe they would have, after it burned down. Look, I didn't know it was gonna burn down. Still, this is bad. I know it is. That's why I've been freaking out. Does anyone else know you were there? No? Not yet, anyway. You sure about that? Yeah. What if someone saw you? Nobody saw me. You can't be certain. I'm telling you, I was careful. But if they find out, they won't. You're awfully confident for someone who's in the middle of this mess. What mess? I didn't do anything. You were there. That's enough to make it messy. So what are you saying? I'm saying you better figure out what you're gonna do if someone starts asking questions. Like who? The cops, for starters. Why would they come to me? I don't know. Maybe they've got cameras or something. Cameras? At that old place? Or nearby? Someone could have seen you. You're just trying to scare me. No. I'm trying to make you think. I am thinking. And I think you're overreacting. Am I? Yeah. Nobody cares about me walking past some abandoned house. Maybe. But what if they find out about the gasoline? What about it? I didn't put it there. Doesn't matter. You were there, you smelled it, and you didn't report it. So what? Is that a crime? Maybe not. But it sure makes you look bad. This is insane. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying you're connected now. Connected how? By walking through the park? By seeing something? Fine. Let's say the cops come. What am I supposed to tell them? The truth. The truth? Yeah. You walked by, saw lights, smelled gasoline, and kept going. And you think that's gonna make me look less suspicious? Better than lying. I don't know. This feels all wrong. What's your alternative? I don't know. Maybe just keep quiet? Bad idea. Why? Because secrets have a way of coming out. You don't understand. If I say something, they might think I was involved. Not saying anything makes you look more involved. This is a nightmare. It's not that bad. Not that bad? You just said, I'm connected to a house that burned down. Look, you're not the one who set it on fire, but they don't know that. Then, make them know. How? By being honest. Honest? With cops? That's a joke. You got a better plan? No. Then maybe stop freaking out and just deal with it. Easy for you to say. You weren't there, and I'm trying to keep you from making it worse. Fine. Let's say I tell them. Then what? Then you answer their questions and move on. Just like that? Yeah. You don't think they'll dig deeper? Into what? You didn't do anything. I don't know. What if there's more to this? Like what? Like, what if that guy I saw was the one who started the fire? Then it's even more important that you say something. You're not getting it. What if he saw me? Okay. Let's think this through. There's nothing to think about. If he saw me, I'm screwed. Not necessarily. How do you figure? He doesn't know who you are. What if he does? How? Did you talk to him? No. Then relax. Relax? Are you serious? Yes. You're overthinking this. Overthinking? Someone torched a house, and I was there. You weren't in the house. But I saw him, and he didn't see you. You don't know that. If he did, don't you think he would have come after you? Maybe. Or maybe he's waiting. For what? I don't know. To make sure I don't talk. You're spiraling. Am I? What if this guy's dangerous? He might be. All the more reason to go to the cops. I can't. Why not? Because if I talk, and he finds out, you're making this bigger than it is. Am I? Yeah. I don't think you get how serious this is. I do. And that's why you need to stop hiding. I can't. You can. No, I can't. What if... Stop. Listen to yourself. What? You're working yourself up over nothing. Nothing? Yeah. You think this is nothing? Compared to what it could be? Yeah. What does that mean? It means you're not the one who burned the house down. And that's all that matters. I wish I could believe that. You should. I don't know. Then figure it out fast, because this isn't going away. What do you mean? Sooner or later, someone's gonna come knocking. And when they do, be ready. I hope you're right. I am. You better be. I am. Nowhere to be found. She's gone missing? When? Last night. I woke up this morning, and she wasn't in her bed. I thought maybe she'd gone to the bathroom, but she wasn't there either. I checked everywhere. Oh my God, Tori, did you check the backyard? Maybe she went outside to play early. Of course. I checked the backyard. I checked the whole house, top to bottom. She's not the type to just wander off, especially not this early in the morning. Okay. Have you called the police? Not yet. I don't know. I was so panicked. I called you first. You know how they are. They'll assume the worst, that I'm a bad mother. Tori, stop. Listen to me. You need to call them now. The sooner they start looking, the better. Every second counts. You're right. I'll call them now. Good. I'll be right over. Just stay put. Thank you, Sam. I don't know what I'd do without you. Don't worry. We'll find her. Just breathe. 911. What's your emergency? My daughter. She's missing. I can't find her anywhere. Ma'am, can you give me your name and address? Victoria Brooks, 123 Main Street. And the missing person's name and age? Rose Brooks. She's 6 years old. She has long, dark hair, light brown eyes, and she was wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with the little bunnies on them. Mrs. Brooks, we'll send someone over to take a statement. In the meantime, try not to worry. But how can I not worry? She's just a little girl. I understand, ma'am. But it's important that you stay calm and answer the officer's questions clearly. Can you do that? Yes, I'll try. Good. An officer will be there soon. Tori, it's me, Sam. Oh, thank God. I'm so glad you're here. I'm a mess. I told you I'd come. Have the police been here yet? Not yet. They said they'd send someone over soon. Did you find anything else? Any clues? Anything out of place? Nothing. It's like she just vanished into thin air. Her bed was unmade, as if she got up normally. But her favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Snuggles, is gone too. Mr. Snuggles? That's her little teddy bear, right? Yes, she never goes anywhere without him. It's strange. Maybe she took him with her. Did you check the windows? Are any of them unlocked? I don't know. I'll check. The one in the living room was unlocked, but it's too high for her to reach. Oh, God. Do you think someone took her? We don't know that yet, Tori. Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe she climbed on a chair or something. We need to stay calm and wait for the police. Someone's at the door. I think that's them. Hello? I'm Detective Smith. You must be Mrs. Brooks. Yes, that's me. Come in. I'm here to ask you some questions about your daughter's disappearance. Of course. Anything to help find her. Can you tell me what happened last night? I put Rose to bed around 8 p.m. I read her a story, like always. She was asleep within minutes. I checked on her a few times throughout the night, and she was sound asleep. But when I woke up this morning, she was gone. Did you notice anything unusual last night? Any strange noises? Any cars outside? Anything like that? Nothing. It was a normal night. We had dinner, watched a little TV, then got ready for bed. Everything was fine. What about her father? Is he in the picture? Yes, my husband. But he's deployed overseas. And you're sure you checked everywhere in the house? Yes, I'm positive. I even checked the backyard, the shed, the basement, everywhere. Did Rose have any friends or other family she might have gone to? Anyone she might wander off to see? No, she's only 6. She doesn't have any friends outside of school, and my family lives out of state. All right, Mrs. Brooks. We're going to start our investigation and let you know if we find anything. But before we leave, we'll need to take a look around the house, if that's fine with you. Of course, Detective. Anything to help find my Rose. Thank you. And please, try to stay hopeful. We'll do everything we can to find your daughter. I appreciate that, Tori. I'm going to go check the park down the street. Rose loves playing there. Maybe she wandered off there last night. That's a good idea. I'll stay here in case the police come back. All right. I'll call you if I find anything. Be careful, Sam. Hello? Tori. It's me. I found something. What is it? Did you find Rose? No, but I found Mr. Snuggles. It was lying on the ground near the playground. Oh my God! What does that mean? I don't know, but it can't be good. I'm going to call the police and let them know. Please, hurry. I'm coming over there right now. No, Tori, wait. The police wouldn't want us to contaminate the scene. Just stay at the house. But I know, but we have to trust them. I'm calling them right now. 911, what's your emergency? Hello, Detective Smith, please. Please hold. Detective Smith speaking. Detective, it's Samantha Jones. Sam, Tori Brooks' friend. I found Rose's teddy bear, the one she always carries around. It was just lying on the ground at the neighborhood park. What? Okay, I'm on my way. Can you stay there and make sure nobody touches anything? Yes, of course. Thank you. I'll be there soon. Tori, the police are on their way to the park. They're going to search the area. Oh God, I hope they find her. I know. We just have to stay positive. I'm trying, but it's getting harder and harder. I get it. Just hang in there. They'll find something. I'm certain of it. Detective Smith, we've searched the entire park, but there's no sign of the girl. Damn it! We need to widen our search. Check all the nearby houses and businesses. See if anyone saw anything. Check security cameras. Anything. We need to find this little girl, and we're running out of time. Yes, sir. Tori, the police are widening their search. They're checking all the houses in the neighborhood, talking to people, looking at security footage. That's good, right? It means they're taking this seriously? Yes, it means they're not giving up. I hope so. I can't lose her. They'll find her, Tori. I know they will. I hope you're right. I think the police are back. Mrs. Brooks, we have some news. Is it about Rose? Did you find her? Yes, we found her. Oh my God, is she okay? Is she hurt? She's alive, but she's been through a lot. We found her in an abandoned house a few blocks from here. She was hiding in a closet. Who took her? Why? Was she hurt? We're still investigating, but we have a suspect in custody. It appears to be a case of a kidnapping gone bad. The suspect has a history of similar offenses. Rose is being checked out at the hospital, but she seems physically unharmed. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe someone would do this. I understand. It's a terrible thing. But the important thing is that Rose is alive. Can I see her? Yes, of course. She's at the hospital right now. We'll take you there. Thank you, Detective. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Mrs. Brooks. We're just glad we could bring your daughter home. Rose! Mommy! Mrs. Brooks. I'm so glad Rose is okay. Me too. I can't believe this nightmare is finally over. I know it's been a long day, but it's a happy ending. Yes, it is. A very happy ending, but frightening nevertheless. We need to get you both home. But first, we'll need to speak with Rose. Detective, Rose has been through a lot. Could we do this tomorrow? Perhaps you could stop by the house around noon. Sure. I understand. I'll have an officer drive you all home. Thank you. And in the meantime, I'm never letting her out of my sight again. I think that's a good idea. The betrayal. The door to the kitchen flew open and hit the side of the refrigerator with a loud thud. Cold air rushed in. You rotten bitch. I trusted you. Brock McCarthy stood in the doorway with his shoulders squared and fists clenched. How could you do that to me? His nostrils flared as he shook his head. Stunned, Clara Simmons gasped when she heard the commotion. After she regained her composure, she bristled at the hateful accusation. She placed the half-empty dinner plate she was holding in the sink. Staring into his brown eyes, she asked, "What the hell are you talking about?" After 2 years of living together, she knew Brock's temper. But this deranged outburst was worse than usual. You know damn well what I'm talking about. My secret. I told you never to tell anyone about that shit. I didn't say anything to anybody. Her words were unhurried but emphatic. You had to tell somebody something. When I went to the back door after work, all the guys started busting my balls, dropping hints, talking shit like they knew things. All of them acted like they knew something. And you're the only one I talked to about that shit. Brock unzipped his black leather jacket and draped it on the back of a kitchen chair. Why did you do it? You're nuts. Or you're drunk. I didn't say anything. They glared at each other as a chilling silence gradually filled the room. Hell, I'm not even close to being drunk. I had to leave the bar before I could finish my pitcher. It was impossible to tell what Brock was more agitated about, leaving cold beer or defending himself against the swirling speculations about his hidden, checkered past. Did you bother to ask how your drinking buddies heard about your precious secret? Her voice was soft, as if asking a child if they had finished their homework. I didn't have to. Damn it. You are the only one who knows. With unhurried steps, Clara walked around the kitchen table, pulling on the back of the chair. The faint scraping of the wooden legs against the linoleum broke the quiet, like fingernails on a chalkboard. She took a seat and cast her gaze towards her angry boyfriend. That's not exactly true. She paused as their eyes momentarily locked. Is it? The tone of her now controlled voice was made bitter by a toxic mix of scorn and controlled rage. Those women know. After a long pause to emphasize her point, she said, "Trust me, they really know." Like air escaping from a balloon, Brock's body went limp. Without making a sound, he fell into the chair across from her, searching her face for a clue about her intentions. "Look, you chose to tell me about your twisted secret. It was your choice." Clara's voice was cold. "And I haven't told a soul since. But now I'm wondering what else you might be hiding." "Wait, that's not fair." "Fair? Fair? You have the balls to mention fair to me? That's laughable. You bust in here and accuse me of betraying you without a shred of evidence. I've always told you everything." Brock reached up and scratched the scruffy hair on his face. "I didn't have to tell you about the women and what happened. But I did. And now you expect me to carry the same guilt?" Clara adjusted her glasses. "No, of course not. It's not guilt, exactly. Not really. It's more like, I don't know how to explain it." They sat listening to the faint sound of the small clock on the oven, ticking away the minutes, like the shattered pieces of their failing relationship. Absent-mindedly, Clara used her thumb to wipe the pepper dust off the shaker sitting in the middle of the table. "Do you think one of the women, moved here?" He took a long time to answer, as if he hated the power of what truth might do to him. "It's possible." He bit the inside of his cheek a few times while he thought. Clara leaned back in her chair. "So, what will you do? I mean, if you see one of them?" She stifled a yawn as her composure returned. "There's another possibility. What if one of those women sent their boyfriend to find you? Like a trapper beating the bushes to get the snakes to show where they're hiding." Brock twisted his face into a scowl after he deciphered her meaning. Crap. He leaned back into his chair. He sat silent for a long moment. "I've never even thought about that. It was always a slim possibility, I guess." "Well, I think you had better start thinking about that possibility, because I never said a word to anyone, ever. Why would I?" Brock pursed his lips and folded his arms in resignation. Holy shit. What are we going to do now? We? Are you seriously thinking this problem is a we thing? I didn't have anything to do with that shit. I wasn't there. I don't even know who they are. This is your ugly history, not mine. Always has been. I thought we were a couple. I thought we were, getting serious. Brock's voice conveyed desperation. Oh yeah, that was before you came in here and blamed me for something I didn't do. I don't think I want to stick around to see what else you might blame me for. No, babe, wait. You can't do that. Really, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Well, I guess you should have thought about that before you shoved open the kitchen door with a heart full of hate I went from bitch to babe in 5 minutes. And I don't want to see how long it'll take next time. She placed her hands flat on the table. Calmly, she rose and ambled across the kitchen towards the bedroom. Stopping halfway, she turned and said, "I don't want to become another secret in your long history of betrayals. Where I come from, love is all about trust. And you just lost mine, and now you're losing me." She turned and went into the bedroom and slammed the door. Sayamontes. The musty dungeons. I thank the Lord for saving me from the dungeons. I was there for less than a day, caught up in the labyrinth. I became heartbroken at the sight of many tortured corpses. I prayed. I prayed for my God to help me. How long must I stay here? Then I remembered I had absinthe, a gift, the perfect gift. I ingested the entire bottle, straight. I could not feel my face. I wanted to cry tears of relief and sadness. Oh, Sayamontes, will you truly be mine? My nipples hardened at the thought. I got goosebumps all over. I quickly became overwhelmed with sexuality. I touched myself here and there. It changed my life. I had never made myself feel so good. Completely intoxicated, I wept. Then, "Thank you, sweet Jesus," an angel appeared. "Prepare yourself. Sayamontes soon shall be yours. Go ahead and touch yourself, for once you are the ruler. You will be touched by many. It will be your duty to produce an heir." I did as instructed, and it felt great. I went to rinse off in the shower, and I heard voices in my head. She hates us straight men. She's openly expressed that she wants to fuck us with dildos to make us submissive, said one voice. Then I heard another voice say, "Let's get her when she's alone." What was going on at Sayamontes? I had to get back there. It is true. Sonia was going to overwhelm the male population with sex. Sex. All day, every day, until one produced an heir. The next baby, any baby, would get the crown upon their 13th birthday. She was not joking around. If there was no heir, then it would be off to the gallows with her Richard. It was Richard who found me lost in the dungeons. I would have died down there if he had not searched for me. How did he know I was down here in hiding? Maybe it was Great Leader. Maybe she was alive. Maybe she didn't join the men on the battlefields. Oh my. Oh goodness. Could she still be alive? I asked Richard, "How is our Great Leader? Tell me of Sayamontes. Please, please, Richard, tell me," I ordered as he led me straight out of the dungeons. His torch was finely made. It shone bright. I cried as I smelled the fresh air. The dungeons were so moldy, so musty. I could not stand it much longer. Had I stayed down there any longer, I would have slit my wrists long ways. For that was the right way to end things. Long ways. Slice through your veins and your tendons. Cut them up, I was thinking to myself. Cut them up. As Richard and I reached the higher ground level of Siamontes, I shed a tear. I instantly left Richard. I could not help myself. I had to see my great leader. And I did. I saw her huddling with the masses. They were praying to God for the forgiveness of their sins, though they were the ones attacked. I interrupted their prayers. There would be no more asking for forgiveness. Beautiful women, what you did today was not wrong. Halt your voices. Halt your madness. You have reached victory today, and you have saved Siamontes. Then great leader approached me. Then all of the women and Richard rushed over to me. They cheered me on with adulation. "Oh, great new leader," said Samantha, and I screamed, "No, I am and will always be Sonia, and Richard is always to be my guide, my great protector, my knight in chainmail armor. Oh, glorious young knight, Richard, will you join me in my new chambers after I rinse myself, please?" It was time to get busy. Ladies, to the showers. Perhaps we can all make Richard our king. Martha, you were a great leader, but now, can you find new chambers to sleep? I shall find somewhere else to sleep. It is cool weather. Perhaps I shall grab some blankets and sleep on the hard concrete bench next to the fire pit, since there are no more rooms available in Siamontes except for in the dungeons. Martha raised her voice at me, her new leader. I was stunned. Why would she do such a thing? I loved Martha, but she did send me to the dungeons when she could have just locked me in the wardrobe up in the attic. She could have had someone deliver me food and water, or she could have done it herself. How dare you raise your voice to me not 1 minute after giving me all power over Siamontes? How dare you? I could send you off to the dungeons for a night, or 2 or 20, or more. See what you think of it. While I was down there, I saw your predecessor. She was cuddled up next to a corpse. Is that where you want to end up? I think not. To the gallows with you, I ordered. And just like that, the beautiful women went from loving Martha to hating her. Tar and feather, tar and feather, to the gallows with her, shouted the women in unison. In Siamontes, you never disrespect your leader. It could be punishable by just the stocks for a lesser offense, then the gallows. Then it was execution, much easier than a week in the gallows without food or water. You would pray for rainfall and not get it. Pure and intense suffering. and the mosquitoes at night would make you wish you had never been born. Stuck in your own filth, you could cry out to God all you wanted, but not even He could unlock the locks in the stocks. Strip her and search her right here on the spot. Then lock her away in the gallows until her death. "Wait!" screamed Martha, but it was too late. They ripped off her dress and everything else. They had to drag her through the mud in the rain, way to the gallows. Sludge covered Martha. She looked disgusting and pathetic. The stocks first, the hands second, and the head was locked in third. "Lick at the rainwater. You'll die slower," I said. Then we abandoned her. We went back inside Siamontes out of the rain, and we rinsed off in the showers. We met Richard in my chambers, and we all had a good time. Perhaps this would be my good reckoning. Perhaps sweet Richard could give us an heir. I just wish he had a better nose and stronger thighs, not the best in the bedroom. Richard would die soon at the age of 19, but that is a story for a different day. Good night. What lies behind her mirror? Detective Sarah Chen stared at the ornate Victorian mirror, its silver surface reflecting nothing but shadows in the dim light of the abandoned mansion. 3 days, 3 women missing, and all connected to this house. The mirror seemed to mock her with its emptiness. "Find anything?" Detective Mike Rodriguez's voice echoed from the hallway. "Just another dead end," Sarah replied. But something about the mirror kept drawing her attention. The curved floral patterns along its frame seemed to shift in her peripheral vision, but when she looked directly at them, they were perfectly still. "The homeowner's alibi checks out," Mike said, entering the room. "He was in Tokyo when the first woman disappeared." Sarah traced her fingers along the mirror's frame. "What about his wife?" "That's where it gets interesting." Mike pulled out his notebook. "Mrs. Eleanor Wright hasn't been seen in public for 6 months. Neighbors say she became a recluse after their daughter's suicide last year." Sarah's hand froze on the frame. Suicide? That wasn't in the case file, because it wasn't ruled a suicide officially. The daughter, Rebecca Wright, 19, was found in this room, in front of this mirror, with no signs of trauma. Toxicology came back clean. They called it natural causes, but 19-year-olds don't just die of natural causes, Sarah finished. She leaned closer to the mirror, her breath fogging the glass. For a moment, she thought she saw something move behind her reflection, a shadow darker than the others. "Here's the part that'll give you chills," Mike continued. "Each of our missing women reported seeing someone following them in mirrors before they disappeared. Their therapists all noted it as a shared delusion." Sarah stepped back from the mirror. "All 3 saw someone in mirrors, a woman in a black dress, according to their descriptions. They said she would watch them, getting closer each time, but only in reflections, never in real life. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah pulled her jacket tighter. "We need to talk to Mrs. Wright." "Already tried? The housekeeper says she hasn't left her room in 3 months. Won't see anyone. Won't talk to anyone." Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from forensics. "Lab results are in on the dust samples from the missing women's homes. Anything useful? Traces of silver nitrate and..." Sarah squinted at the screen. "Something they can't identify. Some kind of organic compound they've never seen before." A floorboard creaked behind them. Both detectives spun around, but the doorway was empty. When Sarah turned back to the mirror, she caught a glimpse of movement, a flash of black fabric disappearing around the edge of the reflection. "Tell me you saw that," she whispered. Mike shook his head. "Saw what?" Sarah approached the mirror again, her heart pounding. The frame felt cold under her fingers, much colder than it should be. "We need to get this mirror to the lab. Sarah, it's just a mirror. We need to focus on finding Mrs. Wright, and 3 women are missing, Mike. All saw someone in mirrors before they vanished. Rebecca Wright dies mysteriously in front of this specific mirror. And now I'm seeing..." She stopped, realizing how it would sound. "You're seeing something in the mirror, too?" Mike's voice carried a note of concern. "Maybe you should take a break. You've been working this case non-stop for..." A laugh echoed through the room, high, feminine, and definitely not coming from either of them. Mike drew his gun, scanning the shadows. "NYPD, show yourself." Sarah couldn't move. In the mirror, a woman in a black Victorian dress stood directly behind her. But when Sarah spun around, there was nothing there. The figure remained in the reflection, smiling. "Mike," Sarah's voice shook. "Look in the mirror." He turned, and his face went pale. That's not possible." The woman in black raised a finger to her lips, then pointed to something behind them. Against their better judgment, both detectives turned. A door had appeared in the wall, a door that hadn't been there moments ago. It stood slightly ajar, revealing a silver glow beyond. "Call for backup," Sarah said, drawing her weapon. Mike already had his phone out. No signal. The woman in the mirror laughed again, the sound seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. When they looked back at the reflection, she was gone. But words had appeared in the fog of Sarah's breath on the glass. "Come find us. We need to leave," Mike said, backing toward the room's entrance. "Now." But Sarah stood transfixed by the mirror. In its depths, she could now see multiple figures. Women in modern clothing, frozen in poses of terror, their faces familiar from the missing persons reports. And behind them, barely visible, was Rebecca Wright, mouthing 2 words over and over. "Help us. The killer isn't Mrs. Wright," Sarah whispered. "It's the mirror. Somehow, it's the mirror." That's impossible. Mirrors don't kidnap people. Mirrors don't kill. 3 months ago, I would have agreed with you. Sarah's fingers found a catch in the mirror's frame, a small lever hidden among the floral patterns. But look at the evidence. The silver nitrate in their homes, the mysterious compound, the shared visions. What if this isn't just a mirror? What if it's a door? A door to where? Sarah pressed the lever. The mirror's surface rippled like water, and through it, they could hear distant screams. I don't know, she answered, but those women are still alive in there, and we're going to get them out. Mike grabbed her arm. Wait. If this is real, if this is actually happening, we need a plan. We need equipment. We need to move now. Sarah cut him off. Look, the ripples in the mirror's surface were spreading to the frame, to the wall around it. The door behind them creaked wider, the silver light growing brighter. It's not just a portal, Sarah realized. It's expanding. If we don't stop it now, it'll take over the whole house, Mike finished. The whole city. Sarah checked her gun, knowing it might be useless against whatever waited on the other side. I'm going in. Call for backup if you get a signal. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, I'm coming with you, Mike said firmly. Partners don't let partners enter interdimensional mirrors alone. Despite everything, Sarah smiled. Ready? Mike nodded. Ready. Together, they stepped through the rippling surface. The last thing they saw in the normal world was their own reflections, distorting and fragmenting as reality bent around them. Then, they were falling through silver light, the screams growing louder, and somewhere ahead, a woman in black was laughing. The mirror stood silent in the empty room, its surface slowly stilling until it once again showed only shadows. But if anyone had looked closely, they might have seen new figures in its depths, a man and woman in police uniforms, running through an endless maze of mirrors, chasing a figure in a black dress who always stayed just out of reach. And on the wall, in elegant Victorian script, new words appeared in the dust. Who will come looking for them? Eye of the horse. Oh my God! Shrieked the women, sitting in the airport van, 3rd and 4th row bench seats, as the frigid air rushed in. No! I yelled, now alone and motionless in the 2nd row. I never saw a guy die before, but I wasn't totally surprised by what happened. The door just opened and out he went, sobbed one of the gals in the rear of the van. His body slammed onto the pavement of Pena Boulevard at 70 Mamie, then was splattered by the U.S. Foods 18-wheeler behind us. Steak delivery to Elway's Tap Room and Grill at Denver International Airport was definitely delayed that day. I wish I had never started a conversation with the guy next to me on American Flight 5460 Louisville to Denver. Or maybe I should have warned him to just close his eyes. That day won't stop playing back in my mind. It started innocently enough. Hi, I'm Jim from Meeker. Where are you from? I said to the guy in the window seat. My wife Annie says that if I get the middle seat, I should always make friends with my neighbors to avoid any armrest fights. I flashed him my biggest gas and oil business smile. Oh, hello, I'm Brian from Kentucky. Well, at least originally, he replied while extending his oddly sweaty hand. Where's Meeker? Actually, I live on a horse ranch just west of Meeker in northwestern Colorado. Horse country, just like you in Kentucky. I pulled up the bottom of my boot-top business jeans so he could see my Tony Llamas. Oh, hell no. I don't live anywhere near horses now, and never will. I'm a lawyer for the U.S. Department of the Interior. Brian's upper lip was sprouting beads of sweat with that comment. He looked like a size 48 man in a size 44 suit coat. I thought that might explain the perspiration. That's too bad, I said. God never made another animal so connected to human beings, except for maybe dogs. My stallion's big brown eyes can look straight into my soul. After a rough day of selling natural gas and fracking pumps, there's nothing like some quality horse time. Mind if I ask what happened between you and a horse? Oh, yeah. You could say something happened. I was 15 years old, and a bunch of us decided to cut across a horse field to take a shortcut home from the school bus, drop off. Out of nowhere, this huge old gray horse charged at us and damn near bit me as we escaped over the fence. It had one scarred eye socket, and the other eye was all red and bulging and bloodshot. Scared the shit out of me. I fell off the fence and broke my right wrist. I cursed that horse, and I think he cursed me. Look, it never did heal right. Brian pulled up his sleeve, held up his meaty right arm, and revealed a wrist that was weirdly bent like a spoon. Yeah, I can see how that would spook you. How did the horse lose its eye? How the hell am I supposed to know? I was just a kid, and I sure didn't have anything to do with it. From that day on, old One Red Eye charged up to the fence and acted like it wanted a piece of me any time it saw us walking along the road by his pasture. Hey, have you seen a stewardess yet? I really need a drink. Now Brian's hands were trembling a little. Our jet pivoted onto the runway. All eyes looked forward, engine jets roared, and we accelerated with 3 Gs pulling us backwards into the seats. Then the wheels were up, and we were airborne. Hey, darling, could you please get my friend here an old-fashioned? And could you please put it on my credit card? Flight 5462's stewardesses looked like they were recruited from the geriatric ward, older and slower than the spry, shapely young ones from the good old days of air travel. After a few gulps, Brian's hands stopped shaking, but his mouth kept on running. That's not all, Jim. I biked across country when I was 25 years old and almost got trampled to death by wild horses. My buddy and I were in Warm Springs, Nevada, the middle of nowhere in Nye County, with the largest wild horse herd in America. Warm Springs had a one-building combined bar/restaurant/gas station/grocery store. We were exhausted after biking the 50 miles from Tonopah in 100-degree heat, and asked the barkeep if it was okay to pitch our tent for the night near the picnic table beside his establishment. He said, "I don't give a shit." So we did. We conked out right away, and hours later woke up to the sound of thunder. Then the noise became deafening, and the ground and tent walls really shook. I peeked out between the tent flaps and saw nothing but the hooves, shanks, and fetlocks of hundreds of wild horses. It wasn't an earthquake. We were in the middle of a fucking wild horse stampede. Brian's eyes were now bugging out, and his face was red, wet, and kind of wild-looking as he continued. He leaned in toward me and spoke in a whisper. "Jim, I curled up in the goddamn fetal position, preparing to be killed by horses. I don't mind telling you that I actually pissed myself." The guy in the aisle seat, who I never did get to make friends with, heard what Brian said, shifted away from us, and put on his headphones. I guess he had overheard enough. I wish I had done the same. Brian gulped down a second old-fashioned and collected himself a bit. "Jim, when the noise stopped and the dust started to clear, we crawled out from our tent, expecting to find our bikes, and our gear flattened and mangled. But Jim, not a single tent stake or guy rope was disturbed, and our stuff was untouched. There was no way I could sleep after that shit. And we had 75 miles of desert road with no water between Diablo and Ash Springs. So, my buddy insisted that we pack up and pedal before the sun came up. I wasn't too thrilled about him pushing the whole ride in the dark idea. Just as we made it to Diablo, I heard a sound like horses snorting off to our right. And Jim, I swear, I saw one of those wild horses staring right at me with two glowing red eyes. My buddy said I was seeing things, but I know what I saw. Right then, my bike freewheel jammed and sent me flying over the handlebars. I didn't break anything, but I whacked my shoulder and scraped the shit out of my leg. That was it for me. He rubbed his left shoulder like it happened yesterday. The armpits of his polyester suit coat were soaked. I wish I had told Brian that I needed to get some sleep before we landed in Denver. But I didn't. He might be alive today if I had ended our conversation right then and there. "Jim, don't you know the only building in Diablo, Nevada, was a road maintenance garage? The night shift worker there refused to lend us the use of their tools. Sorry, state property boys. So I stayed there till the sun rose and hitched a ride to Las Vegas and flew home. Instead of a relaxing flight home, I got the scare of my life." Brian took another swig from his drink. "Jim, I sat next to this Navajo Indian dude on the plane ride home and told him my story, just like I'm talking to you. He was tall, wore a fancy black suit, and had his hair all pulled back and tied by a white cloth, but smelled like he just came from a campfire. He never said a word until he slowly turned toward me and said, "My people believe the sun-bearer created the horse and placed the stars and the dark universe in the horse's eyes so they can see the dark. You know darkness can kill a man, so can the number 3. Then he got up out of his seat and went to bathroom and never came back. With that, Brian's face tuned pale. I thought he was finally done with his weird story, but he leaned into me again and whispered, "Jim, I think he figured the horses see something dark in me, and I am afraid I'll die if a red-eyed horse looks into my eyes a third time. So, no 3 strikes and you're out for me. No fucking thank you. I don't want to see another horse in my life. My sister just moved to downtown Denver, and I just want to visit her and maybe see a Nuggets basketball game. Yeah, I think some big city shopping and a pro basketball game would do you good, Brian," I said. But now he's dead. I told my wife Annie all of this when I got home. Honey, I was afraid to tell him about that 32-foot-high blue Mustang sculpture. You know, the one just outside the airport that has, of all things, 2 glowing red eyes. I was sure he would go into a full PTSD episode or a seizure if he knew that we call the statue Blucifer. Remember how a section of that 9,000-pound statue fell on that Jimenez guy who sculpted him, and how it crushed his leg and severed a big artery and caused him to bleed to death. I figured he didn't know the story of the crazy guy who hopped out of his car and fired his gun at Blucifer, then turned it on himself. Annie, after we landed, I rode in the same airport van on the same front bench seat as Brian, specifically to distract him as we passed by Blucifer. "You did everything you could to help that poor man, Jimmy," she said, trying to console me while she slipped into her nightgown. "Seems like it's the van company's fault for that sliding door not locking right. Sweetie, at first, I didn't think Brian ever actually saw Blucifer's red eyes, but just after we passed that bastard blue Mustang, he looked at the driver's rear-view mirror and saw Blucifer all reared up on his hind legs with those red eyes beaming. Brian looked at me, and before I could say anything, he just opened the van's side door, and out he went. I should have warned him about the statue. I could have saved him. Annie said, "Oh my God, sounds like that guy had deep issues, and nobody can save that kind of crazy. Why don't you go down to the barn and check on your horses? They always calm you down." I couldn't tell her that I thought about horses and red eyes when I saw car taillights on the road ahead of me as I drove home that night. I couldn't tell her that I was worried about looking into my horse's eyes or what they would see in me. I couldn't tell her that on my last business trip, I had sat next to a Navajo Indian. He wore a black silk business suit, white button-down shirt with turquoise cufflinks, and a thin black leather necktie. His long black hair was pulled back in a traditional tsiel hair bun, and he smelled of burnt sage. He only spoke one sentence to me, and then got up to go to the bathroom and never returned. I hadn't even introduced myself yet. He simply turned to me and calmly asked, "Aren't you worried those natural gas and fracking pumps are harming Mother Earth?" The suicide shop. The suicide shop. When I first saw Kevin Trask, he was almost naked. Perhaps fully naked in my mind's eye, but he was wearing the skimpiest of bathing suits as he got out of his pool, stretched and toweled himself in the noonday sun. He could have modeled for any underwear ad. He was that chiseled, with long, angular lines from head to toe. I was both disappointed and relieved when he put on a purple silk robe. How appropriate, I thought, for the king of his world. He had yet to speak, despite acknowledging my presence with a brief nod. He was dead wrong if he intended for me to feel cowed by his superiority. I hated what he did for a living. "Inside or outside?" he asked as he came closer to me. I must have looked confused, or perhaps still caught in the daze of watching him get out of the pool. "The interview? Oh, okay," I stammered, instantly regretting how I must have sounded to him, but then quickly recovered. "Inside," I said. "Too much sun out here, and I did not bring sunscreen." Inside, I groaned, thinking I could not sound any more stupid and thrown off by his looks, like any schoolgirl, instead of a crack reporter for the Daily Interview, a serious national magazine, a Pulitzer Prize finalist, for God's sake. Jeannie Hawk, crack reporter, bowled over by a Chippendale. "Follow me." He turned and walked away from the house, and then through a hidden door in the outbuilding next to the pool. I like to use this room, out of earshot of the staff. NDAs can only cover so much. I don't want to be overheard spilling state secrets, he said with a smile. "The interview will take about an hour," I said. He sat down and pressed a button on the side of his chair. The wall on the right side rolled away to reveal floor-to-ceiling window panes, revealing a view of the valley and city below. "Nice view," I said. "Fit for the lord of all he surveys." He chuckled. "I like it." "Okay then, Jeannie Hawk, ask away." He got up and went to the wet bar. "Drink?" "Just water." Kevin Trask rarely did interviews, and I wanted to take full advantage of his time. Indeed, other than a few transitory answers at press conferences, he had never given a full interview. I placed my recorder and notebook on the coffee table before me, then dug into my purse for a pen. He watched me as I set up the tools of the trade. "Why both?" he asked. "Why both pen and paper and recorder?" "I always like backup," I said. I never did trust technology. He shrugged. I do. I studied him, taking in the sculptured beauty of his face, the one plastered all over the country on magazines, billboards, and buses. He took you into his eyes, forgiving all, a confessor and father, brother, even lover, all at once, leaving you wanting to do nothing but fall into those eyes and let it all go, listening to his voice as he told you to come find the peace you sought, the release you need, the end you had to have. And here I was, sitting before the real person behind those ads. I shook myself back to the task at hand. This is Jeannie Hawk, date June 1st, 2035. So, Mr. Trask, he stopped me with a hand. Call me Kevin, he said, inviting me to continue. So, Kevin, I stressed the word, how did it all start? Where did you get the idea for the suicide shop? People have always wanted to kill themselves, Jeannie. I made a way for them to do that and live should they choose, and also to die should they choose that. It turns out that being able to do that all in one place made for an attractive business. My turn to hold up a hand. Kevin, if I had wanted to listen to one of the suicide shop ads, I could have simply turned on the television. Every idea starts somewhere. I want to know your start. What drove you at the beginning and made you create all this? Trask watched me interminably, emotions playing deep in his green eyes. Then he seemed to come to a conclusion. I walked into the ocean to die, and I did not die. He paused a long second, and then began again. I walked into the ocean to die, to let the waves wash over me and take me away. I thought the pills I had taken with the booze I had drunk would kick in and block any pain. I had been depressed for a long time and wanted it to end. I picked a spot where, when I sat down, the water came up to my neck. Then I waited. Oddly, I did not think about much. I just sat and waited. Perhaps it was the booze and the drugs. I don't know. But what was ahead of me was just a blank. Nothing that held any terror. I fell asleep for what I thought would be the last time. The water would take me, and I would be at peace. When I woke, the first light of dawn glimmered on the horizon. I was now sitting on wet sand, naked, the water's edge now 5 feet behind me. The tide had gone out, not in. And now I was sober and exposed and very, very naked. I raced to my clothes, still piled on the sand. I pulled the shorts on and then slipped back into my hotel room. No one saw me on the beach at that time of the morning. I would have made quite a sight to the old couples who strolled the early morning hours on the sand, hunting for shells and health. You cannot imagine how foolish I felt. both lucky and a total failure simultaneously. The odd thing was that I no longer wished to die. My depression was gone, lifted from me like a weight that held me down. I felt light and released and did not fear the future. He stopped, not looking at me, lost in thoughts of long ago. I asked, "If you did not want to die anymore, then why did you start a company that provides suicide as a service?" He returned to the present, looked at me with those eyes that poured deep into my soul, and smiled. "Have you ever wanted to kill yourself, Jeannie?" "Of course not," I said, perhaps a bit too briskly. "I don't believe you. Most people want to, at least once at some point in their lives, only to be stopped by circumstance or fear. Morality offers only partial protection. When you do it, it seems like a good idea at the time." I never forgot that. I had truly wanted to die. I had no reservations, and yet I did not die. And in that not dying, my life was given back to me. I went to work in various businesses, creating a living for myself and doing very well. I watched as society's attitude toward suicide changed, and a new movement started. My life, my body movement swept the country, sometimes not easily, but it continued to grow. People had become tired of being told what to do, no matter whether it meant being told what to do to live or being told what to do to die. They looked at it like a new war of independence, and they won. Congress eventually passed the My Life, My Body Act, making suicide legal. I helped, worked for the movement, and gave my money and time. I had a plan that I had ready for the time that came. I saw a need to provide people with a way to explore the suicide scenario safely, to see if that was indeed what they wanted, or if, like me, they would find that it was just a good idea at the time. So, I opened my first suicide shop. There, you could try the various ways to do yourself in. I expected that many people would regret the act if saved from it, just as I had been. I arranged multiple ways to try. A menu, so to speak, death à la carte. All safe, unless you flipped off the safety switch. Then, it became permanent, but it was rarely used. Most preferred the safe try. The first shop was so successful that I franchised it, and it became the largest chain of any company in the country, and over the years, in the world. Would you like to see the inside of the shop? Absolutely. I followed him out of the house, down to a parking area with a large blue Rolls-Royce and a red Lamborghini. The chauffeur was waiting by the Rolls, and I expected him to get in that one, but he crossed the parking lot floor and held the door of the Lamborghini open for me. "I like to drive. Do you feel you are doing all this for the money?" I asked when we were driving. He just looked straight ahead, weaving in and out of the traffic, expertly guiding the car. I thought I saw a small curl in the corner of his lips, just the beginning of a smile. That's an old gambit, not very inventive, and surely you can come up with better. I provide a service. Others could do it as well, but I think my way gives people a chance to reconsider, to change their minds, and not complete the task if they are not truly committed. True, I said. What about those who come back repeatedly? Are they not adrenaline death junkies, getting ever closer to the deed to keep getting high? This time he did not smile. Off the record? Okay, I answered. I have worried about that. At first, it was just a blip on the data screens, but at least there was a distinct uptick in the repeat visits. There may be a sexual adrenaline component to it. How often have you done it? I asked. Many, many times. I sensed that there was more he wanted to say, but he just added, "It does make the bottom line look good." Do you have much security? Oddly, not much, but we must guard the cars. We never know which trip could be their last. I let them park on site. Public lots complained about the abandoned vehicles. He parked the car, and we got out. We went to a private elevator, then up 4 floors, and then out to a large room. A hallway led out from it in 4 different directions, each lined by large glass doors on either side. He waved a languid arm to either side, and I watched pride form on his lips in a slow smile. Each room is a different experience, he said. Each room will be tuned to an individual's desires, just like tuning your radio dial to the deadly channel of death. This one, he said, pointing to the room to his right, is the overdose room, complete with all the world's favorite drugs, packaged in pill or IV form. If you want to go right to the edge and be pulled back, you must leave the safety switch in the safe position, and an aide will administer the antidote. Tell me of the other rooms. He moved on, waving his hand to either side, pointing out rooms for gunshots, cutting your wrists, throwing yourself out of a building or a cliff, car wrecks, death. By misadventure, even death by cop. There were many more rooms. Some take more preparation, mixing virtual and real reality in ways that can keep you alive unless you've turned off the safety switch. They are proprietary trade secrets that I can't tell you. We are quite adaptable. I felt the hair rising on my neck as he said this, realizing what appetites were being fulfilled here. I made a few notes, and my mind was racing. It's a cultural phenomenon. People use suicide as entertainment. I looked up at him and saw great weariness in his eyes, more than I would have expected. He was not a young man, but looked older than he should have when he did not smile. I suspected that he was unhappy with his creation. "Let's have a cup of coffee," he said. He led me down the hallway around the corner. There is a cafeteria coffee shop for people needing a timeout, or a family that comes with them. Usually, if they bring family, they don't take the final plunge. Most of the time, they do that alone. He sat me down at the table and brought us each a cup of coffee. Mine was exactly what I wanted. Heavy duty, with lots of sugar. I wondered if he had been researching me. "Off the record," he said, watching me put my book away and ensure the recorder was powered off. The rest of our discussion should be off the record, as it might be bad for business. Going back to our previous discussion, people often ask why the person kills themselves. As I told you, I've always said that it is because it seems like a good idea at the time. The premise of my business was to have a way to explore that and find out if that's what you really wanted to do. Once the laws were changed and suicide became legal and a recognized right, it took on a life of its own. As you know, I have thousands of suicide shop franchises worldwide and gather data on the people who do it themselves. At first, it was a small number, but most people seemed to be looking for experience without true motivation. I've noticed, though, that the more you try, the more you return. And the more they return, the closer they get to the end. I believe you're right. Those people have developed an addiction. What is not known is that more people have died in the last 3 years of my shops than in all the wars the world over in those 3 years. To quote that old line, I have become death. He chuckled mercilessly. Beware of unintended consequences. "Can you stop it?" I said. He looked at me and smiled, but the smile seemed to have the weight of the world in it, preventing it from ever becoming full. "Turn your recorder back on. Let's finish the tour. You know I've never given an interview like this before. You may win a Pulitzer." We went to the last room. Inside the center of the room was a guillotine, one of my new additions. This device is one of the most efficient ways to kill ever invented. It's foolproof with the proper machine, quick in its finality, and I hope it is painless, although you can't ask the subject after it's done. Of course, it has a safety switch. And as with all the rooms, I can measure all the physiologic signs right up to the actual death moment. This room has not had a customer yet. I would expect it to be the same. The sensors review the data and come up with what I call the fear acceptance ratio. The closer to 0 that ratio gets, the more certain it becomes that the person will go through with it and kill themselves. I have placed a monitor in each room that the customer cannot see, but my technicians can. That's it, there on the far wall. If my technicians see the number getting close to 0, they know to be ready to call in the cleanup crew. That's a detail that has never been revealed. Be sure you write that down. The safety switch is there, by the right hand. In order to have the machine complete the task, you have to push it all the way to the right, and a green light will come on. and the computer will ask you if you are sure. If you say yes, the blade drops. He looked at me and asked, "Are you getting everything?" I nodded. "Stay here then, and watch." Then he slipped inside the room. I was unsure, but I thought I had heard him lock it. I saw him lay down on the guillotine and put the bracket over his neck, and heard it click into place. I heard his voice tell me the sensors were built into the machine. I looked at the monitor on the far wall and saw a flashing number that started at 7 and then crept quickly to 0. "Are you getting all that?" I heard him say. "Yes," I said, feeling a tremor of doom start to shake me. I wanted him out of that room. I saw him grasp the safety switch. His hand slowly pushed it towards the right. "Remember everything I said," I heard him say, as I tried to force my way through the door, but realized it was useless. Through the glass, I saw the safety switch turn green and heard the computer's voice asking if he was sure. Holding what I felt was my last breath, I heard him say, "Yes." "No, don't!" I screamed. "No, don't!" The blade dropped. The last thing I saw as my scream faded was his head rolling on the floor, stopping next to the glass, his dead green eyes on mine. I was still crying, "No, don't."